A lot of women wonder, can communication improve emotional abuse? A lot of therapists will tell you that it can. If you just explain to him how this hurts you, then it'll change, right? But they're not counting for the emotional abuse that is manipulative kindness, or the psychological abuse that is manipulative kindness, where they tell you things you want to hear. I'm so sorry. I know that was hurtful. I know it was harmful. And yet it continues, right? So does communication help if this person is abusive is the real question we have to ask. And if you can't improve it with communication, how do you know it is time to stop communicating? Because you can't be in a relationship with someone, a close relationship, if you don't communicate. These communication questions are really hard to understand. Some women can spend years and years and years in therapy trying to communicate, only to find out 10 years later that he's abusive, right? So before you go the communication route, and I talked about this yesterday, how can we learn more about abuse? So here are some easy ways. Read Why Does He Do That?, which I talked about yesterday. Listen to the btr.org podcast. Also, think about what's happened in the past. Have you already told him these things? Like, have you already had conversations about it? How many conversations have you had? With most healthy people, it doesn't take too many conversations to figure out how to improve things. Also, you don't have to have these conversations in the first place because they didn't lie to you and they didn't manipulate you. If you're having to tell somebody that they're manipulative, you can see the problem there. In order for you to figure this out, I've created the Living Free workshop. You can find it at btr.org/livingfree. It's a workshop that takes you step by step through, is this emotional abuse? Is it time to communicate, or is it time to not communicate? Because it is a little bit complex, but it's definitely cheaper than years and years of therapy. It's definitely more safe than putting yourself in a vulnerable position in therapy, or a vulnerable position where you're asking him, hey, are you emotionally abusive? Like, that's never going to be a good idea. That's never going to, yeah. Is that ever going to be a good idea? What do you guys think? Has it worked for you? Have you said, hey, this is emotionally abusive. Can you please stop? And did it work? I mean, I'd love to hear stories if it did. I've never heard of it working, so maybe I just haven't talked to the right people. People have improved via therapy, but usually if they really want to change, and they're the ones going to therapy, not if somebody else drags them in there. So the issue is complex. Does communication help emotional abuse? If you want the answer to that question, please go to btr.org/livingfree.